Well, it's 3 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. We do have one item to add to the agenda. That is the Strategic and Technology Plan update. Michael will be providing that. And we'll move that to occur after the RDA OCLC update before the Enterprise update.
I do apologize. Tyler did ask, do you have anything to add to this agenda? And I said, no, Enterprise is all we need to talk about.
Do we have any other additions or corrections to the agenda? If there are none, I would like to call for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll move. I'll second.
Hearing the motion in a second, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Motion carries. Input from online libraries elected representatives. Do we have any input today? No? And we will move on to the technology project report. Donovan?
All right. As always, we have a cooperative technology purchase going on. The winter 2014 deployments are underway. There were 20 devices and related equipment purchased by 17 libraries in this purchase. The order forms for the spring 2014 purchase will go out on March 31st. And I'm just going to kind of roll along here and trust that if anyone has questions or comments, they'll throw them out there.
Is there anything new or different for the spring purchase?
There is not. Enterprise implementation, I'm not going to say a whole lot about this because we have an entire agenda item on it set next, but we are still set for the launch on April 1st. Pharos 8 upgrades are underway. We have upgraded 6 out of 22 sites. We are carrying out a number of the upgrades in conjunction with cooperative purchase deployments to reduce our travel time. We are chugging along through those. I expect to have them done probably in about 2 months. Migrating WordPress to the cloud. We are in the process of moving all of our hosted websites, including the SELCO website, to a hosted provider. This should reduce our maintenance costs and, more importantly, improve uptime. This will allow us to decommission a web server that is doing nothing but hosting the WordPress sites. We're using SiteGround. A number of staff have had personal experience with it, and it is highly regarded as a hosting site for WordPress. The online libraries that are affected by the move have been notified, and we're going to start those migrations in April. Right now, we are still we're past the planning phase and in the preparation phase. There should be no impact to domains or URLs. So the URLs that libraries are currently using will not change, nor will the SELCO domain. So there should be minimal changes for the libraries affected. And this should greatly improve our ability to keep the websites up.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
You know, I remember when we first raised the issue of hosting websites off SELCO, that plugins were potentially how has that all been resolved?
We worked with the provider, we worked with Cersei Dynex to allow us to use the plugins in a Windows environment, which is what SiteGround is able to provide for us, is my understanding. And I have to apologize. For more than that, I would have to go grab Terry. But my understanding is that we should be able to run the plugins just fine.
Even if they're pulling from the SELCO database?
Yes. That was the obstacle for a long time for us doing this.
So just to remind people that this was one of those activities that we wanted to undertake to move things out of this building so that we would have the potential for more uptime in a cloud environment, which is not to say that if a backhoe cuts a main fiber someplace in the internet in the greater world, the internet can still be clog down or go down or be clogged up. But this does eliminate some amount of potential that if this building has a problem, your website or the 1822 websites on this system would still possibly be up and running.
They should remain up. They should remain running regardless of anything that happens here. Plugins and things like that that impact Selco systems would be affected, but at least the websites themselves would stay up. This will also take a big load off of us for admin. We won't be backing those sites up anymore because the host will be taking care of that for us. I mentioned that we'll be able to decommission a server. There are some security ramifications to that. Our web server is probably the most heavily targeted of our servers, and we spend a lot of time protecting it and cleaning up things that do manage to slip through. So this should take a load off of us as well.
With them hosting, will SiteGround be updating specific versions of WordPress so that will no longer fall on Selco when there's a major update?
No, we will still have to carry that out, but they will be making it available to us, and then we simply carry it out via their console. So unfortunately, we can't quite get away from that. Anything else on that?
Harry says the plugins will still work with SiteGround.
Yep.
Thanks for suggestion.
We are in the process of installing a backup cooling system for the server room. And actually, this slide was written a week ago when we sent the packet out. That project has been completed, and we've got that in place now. They finished that up this morning. So in the event that the primary cooling system fails, we've got this backup unit installed to the server room that will kick on about 2 degrees higher than what the primary unit keeps our server room. So we keep our server room at 75 degrees. And if the temperature gets to 76, we get a notification through an alert system that we installed earlier in the year. And then at 77, the backup will kick in. There is a certain amount of fluctuation in that, so we feel 2 degrees is a pretty good place to have that set at. And that will continue to run indefinitely if necessary. The primary cooling system was installed when the building was built, so it's about 14 years old now. It shows no sign of stopping, but we felt that this was a good time to back that up.
Outside external compressor.
Yeah. Yeah, we installed it. It's in the back with the rest of the air conditioning systems.
And the main unit is still, parts are still available. Every year we double check with Liebert to make sure that they are still servicing and parts are available. So it's not like we can't get anything, because that was my concern. If we have to replace that unit, then we need to plan for that, and because that's a big expense, because the main Liebert unit for the computer room is a more expensive air conditioning system than the other air conditioners for the building. We do, and we have an outline for, there's 9 air conditioners for the building, now 10. We have them serviced quarterly, but we check then with Liebert once a year for this special unit. All the parts are available should we need them, but we do have a plan that if an air conditioning unit goes down. Now, the air conditioning unit for admin down to my office, okay, you know, you bring in a fan, I'm okay. You know, I move to another cooler area of the building, but you can't move the computer room. So that's why the backup unit. The backup unit is sufficient enough, even though it's smaller and less expensive. It is large enough that if we did need to actually replace the main HVAC unit for that room, it would be sufficient for multiple days.
The reason I asked about the external one, we had an issue in Owatonna where the low-end external unit, actually when it was 20 below, would not cool.
Oh.
Because the circuit board was designed so that at a certain temperature it wouldn't run.
Yep.
So we had an outage in the wintertime where we actually had a problem because the compressor wouldn't kick in because it was too cold outside.
Oh, that cold area. You couldn't sign.
It was designed with the exterior compressor, so it's outside.
tied in with the generator just like the rest of the server equipment. So in the event of a power failure, it should keep running. Yeah. And I'd like to back up for just a minute to that web hosting question because I think I gave the wrong answer on that. Actually, I know I gave the wrong answer to one of James's questions. Terry rewrote the plugins to make them platform agnostic, and that's why we were able to do this. When you asked your question, I was so focused on enterprise stuff and some of those other things I drew a blank.
Well, I was just trying to figure out how it did pull.
Yeah. Yeah, he rewrote them to make them independent of platform so that we would be able to make this move. We had identified a Windows-based hosting service that we could have moved to. It was a little more costly and is not as widely used as SiteGround, so we felt better with the SiteGround solution.
So this was running Linux?
Yes. So apologies for the misspeaking there.
Does anyone else have questions for Donovan? If not, then we'll move on to the RDA OCLC update. Cheryl?
Okay, so I guess first I'll just briefly cover RDA. We are pretty much at this point down to crunch time where we gave everyone basically a year where we were wanting them to attend training. We asked them to attend this new training by June, the end of June. So we're quickly approaching the end of June 2014. Just about everyone who's needed to take training has taken training. We're going to schedule a few last RDA classes for the stragglers out there. And as part of our transition to RDA, we took advantage of the work we needed to do for enterprise, which we'll get to, and we updated a bunch of our records to be more RDA compliant as part of the enterprise format issues that we'll discuss later. We have a lot less, for those catalogers in the room, we have a lot less GMDs and a lot more 339s. So that's RDA. It seems to be going really well with everyone so far. As far as the OCLC update goes, we are in the midst of Group 3 and 4. Becky and I and the cataloging team sat down earlier this week and went through sort of where we are with all the libraries in Group 3 and 4. And we're doing a lot better than we thought we were. So that was good to hear. We have inventoried a good number of Group 3. We're finishing up the Rochester schools this week. No, next week. No, next week you're on spring break, so I think it's the week after that we have. No. When are you on spring break? We begin after next week. So then next week we're finishing Rochester schools. The week you're not on spring break.
You know that JM got moved up, right?
Yes, okay. Yes. JM tomorrow. Yeah. So we are finishing up the Rochester schools, and then we have 4, I believe, public libraries that we're going to be doing in April, and that'll be kind of the rest of Group 4. So that's Chatfield, which we scheduled yesterday, and we have Lonsdale, St. Charles, and Hoka and Rushford, so five that are public libraries in Group 4 that are left to do. So we had Faribault's inventory the last week of February. That was an adventure. So that's
an adventure because it snowed.
Oh.
Thank you. You never call that bad snow.
So yes, going on 60 from Zumbrota to Faribault was treacherous, even in my 4-wheel drive. So that was kind of the last large library. So that was a big hurdle for us. So now that we're kind of finishing up the groups here, we have a few schools and stragglers that we'll be dealing with in the fall when the school year starts again. But we're starting to look at this point to post-OCLC cleanup and what we're going to do into the future, because now that we've done all this cleanup, what can we do to maintain it? What can we do to continue to encourage weeding and all sorts of things. So the LSTA competitive grant process is opening up again in July. So one of the grants we are going to be writing is sort of what I'm calling step 2 of the OCLC project, and it would be mainly geared for the public libraries, and it would be hopefully a way to develop some more cleanup, but hopefully utilizing Collection HQ to get us some of those reports and move us forward with, analyzing our collections and seeing where our gaps really are as more of a whole.
For withdrawal in the future from here out, we want us to withdraw.
Yes.
And how many do you want us to have approximately before we contact you to say we have a number of books withdrawn?
You don't need to contact me. I do it every month.
Oh, perfect. I'll
Take
tell
care of
them.
it.
I don't think that's
Yeah, I think Becky brought it up at that training session.
And our plan is that we're going to continue this relationship with our vendor to pick things up. So we know that weeding is a problem, can be a problem at locations. So it works really well. You weed, you send us a box of books, we fill up the garage, they come and pick them up. So we just I assume that we will have fewer boxes than maybe we have had, but this has worked so well for everybody. I assume that we will continue that into the future, like forever. So.
Cheryl, did you want to talk about our follow-up LSTA project?
She did. Collection HQ.
Oh, I'm sorry, I must do this.
All right. Welcome, Donovan, to the meeting. Glad you could join us.
I was thinking about the next item on the agenda.
You want to add anything?
No, I don't want to add anything. I don't think you want me to add anything.
The timing of that one is really weird because the executive committee met March 11th, and the grant is due April 22nd, the day of the next board meeting, and the board meeting will meet an hour and a half after that. So the executive committee agreed that they would review the abstracts and the budget electronically, and they didn't anticipate that they would not approve the applications. But we do need an approval by either the board or the executive committee before the staff can submit them. So we have a plan in process to make sure that we get board approval before the deadline. So 2 applications, one for Collection HQ and a bunch of follow-up activity, and then we have a request from the Red Wing Public High School to come online. So Michael's working on that.
So tell me more about Collection HQ and who will have access to it and how tell me more.
Well, you guys already have access to it.
But if I don't have to pay $10,000 for
Yeah.
access to it, then I would prefer not.
The access would be for all public libraries.
Yeah, it would be those, yeah.
Unfortunately, they don't provide a service for schools. We have asked.
We've kind of discussed handling, because there's 37 publics and 50-some school districts, handling them in, phase 2 would be the publics with Collection HQ, and then phase 3, maybe the next year, we would talk about how to do things with the schools. And Collection HQ isn't an option. We look at, solid and MAC and author vendor analysis and that kind of thing that can work. So, yeah, but it would be us, like right now we export all of Owatonna and Blooming Prairie's bids and items once a month. We would just be doing that for all the public and then getting a series of reports. We talked about the possibility of having like a project manager who would sort of help these libraries with these reports and the training, because there's some extensive statistical analysis and, it's like Web Reporter, but more. So there would be some training involved with that. So.
Are you referencing collection analysis?
Yeah, that's a lot. Collection HQ does that for public libraries. Okay. You guys get that with your vendors.
We do a Mac one each year. In fact, on contact. So for the Mac one, I'm going to contact Mac I contact you to release? Diane?
Send an email to the help desk, and
Yeah.
Becky will take care of it.
Okay. Do I contact Matthew first to say if be on the lookout, Selco is sending? Or
I don't think you have to, but I'm not, you know, Becky will know, so, because she deals with it more than me.
One of the things about Collection HQ I think is kind of exciting is that besides your own collection, they also take your data and compare it with other customer sites that are of comparable size and type of library. So you can pull information not just on your own collection to see how it is compared with other collections from similar libraries throughout the country and even the world, which just gives them more data to mine.
First, we got to write the grant, and then we got to get, yeah. So first, we got to competitive grant.
July.
Yeah, that's when the process would start.
Oh, okay.
So the application's due in April, I think.
Well, you probably know it maybe first part of June if it was awarded yet.
The timeline is that the grant applications are due April 22nd. We're supposed to be notified in May, and because the organizational grant award notifications, which take about 6 weeks to process, we're supposed to have in hand before July 1st because we cannot start work on the project until those are all processed. And it has taken as much as 12 weeks, and it has taken as short as 4 weeks to get them done. So I'm hoping that we will receive notification sometime mid to late May that we have the project. But it will, the plan would be that if awarded, we would buy license Collection HQ for a year. It is a little bit worrisome for me that we will cannot afford Collection HQ right now. There's just not $60,000 in the budget in a year that we reduced the budget by, lost $125,000 in state money. So we can pay for it for a year, and then we're going through a new funding cycle at the state, and the word at the state level is that it looks good because of increases in, we're not running deficits, we're running surpluses, and House and Senate leadership have indicated a possibility of increased funding for regional library basic system support. So it's a little iffy. I don't usually go out on a limb to say start a program that, you know, once people get accustomed to, if there is not money in the second year, but we'll try it.
Are there other services that we're planning on licensing for the good of the whole organization in the future? I didn't read it the other day, the press release from 300 into our library or service.
Yeah, well, 3M is based in the metro area. Certainly there are some others, but not until after we finish the school ebook study. And there have been some discussions at the state level with regards to whether or not the state library or Minitex would license 3M on a statewide level. But I haven't heard anything. So it's on my wish list, but not in a year where we lost $125,000.
Always looking.
Do we have any further questions for Cheryl regarding RDA or the OCLC project? If there are no further questions, we will move on to the update on the strategic and technology plan. Michael.
All right. The strategic and technology plan, as most of you know, we have been at work on that since the end of September. I'm happy to say that on February 4th, we actually have an approved strategic technology plan, and Donovan has it up there on the screen. There are sort of 3 areas, 3 goals that we're focusing on, and what you're seeing are the goals, and then the bulleted list underneath of each one of those are what are known as strategies. So think of it as an outline, big broad goal, then you break it down into the various strategies to meet that particular goal. Looking at these, just thinking from this particular group, that first goal to expand the capacity of SELCO and SELS libraries, that really is the focus on more of the technology side of things. And then obviously you can see from there those are the items. And so the board has approved this. They approved this at their, well, it would have been their January meeting. It was bumped to February because of weather. Imagine that. So anyway, the next step in this particular process is that we're actually having I'm working with our consultants to actually put together something that's maybe a bit nicer looking than this. While this is lovely, something that's that we can certainly use more as a piece that we can sort of show all of the things that we're doing. The other document that was included is something that the staff has been working on. We met with the consultants after the February board meeting and began in earnest to work on what we're calling our implementation plan. This one has the title of years 1 and 2, although when you look on it, yes, there are things that creep into years 3 and beyond. So what this shows you then is that for under each strategy there is some tactics. These are the things that we're actually going to be working on with regard to the strategic and technology plan. So this is the implementation plan. It's a work in progress. It's certainly, this will actually be going to the board for their approval. But you can just sort of see some of the things that we're going to be working on with regard to the strategic and technology plan. If you had a chance to look at it, do you have any questions about this? This actually took 2 sessions, 2 almost all-day sessions to work on. So
I do have a couple questions. Sure. I'm just wondering on a couple of these points if you could just give us some more information.
Sure.
In particular, the strategy to conduct a review of current automation fee structure. So what are the problems, and what are you thinking about in terms of restructuring fees?
I don't have anything other than the fact that we migrated in 2003, and the fee structure has been in place since 2004. It was studied in 2004 by an outside consultant. And so we thought that it was time, after 10 years, to take a look at, is it working? The other thing is that there was 10 years ago, there seemed to be a real clear demarcation between that which was part of the basic operations and stuff that was an add-on. And that's come closer and closer and closer together and been more closely integrated. And so how best does the fee structure that we have right now actually reflect what is best for all concerned? So it's more, in my mind right now, it is definitely more of a philosophical approach to fees and doing due diligence to look at, just like policies, something that should be looked at periodically as opposed to knowing that we want to up it by 2% or we want to reduce it by 3% or that we're going to count something one way this now and we're going to count something one way then. So it's just time to do it. And we might decide that, I don't know, I mean, I really think the best thing would be to hire an outside consultant again, because that seemed to bring opinions around the country that of other ways that you can, how can you look at the same thing differently?
Okay. Was there something else, James?
Yeah, the other one I had a question about was the tiered service levels. I'm not really sure what, so that would be for member libraries as an alternative to technology and library support service structure. That's how it's listed here. I'm just wondering what, not real clear on what that might mean or.
That one also was, does everybody have to have everything all the time? We've got small libraries that maybe don't need to have the in-depth original cataloging training. So are there different ways that we can package the services that we are providing that are, they're again, more meaningful for libraries, that actually will fit into their workflow? Am I? Yeah, add more detail.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not strictly financial.
Oh no,
Okay.
This is really tiered service.
I didn't know when I was thinking then you would charge based on particular.
Yeah, it could end up correlating between, or it could be that, that would probably be somewhat logical that, if you're looking at your typical bronze, gold, silver, platinum.
Oh, don't use that. well, currently you charge PC support based on the number of PCs,
right.
So that's why I'm just curious. It's not mid-sure.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I was looking at harder.
The SELCO bundle.
SELCO bundle. Oh.
Right now, at the libraries on Horizon, it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. Trying to assimilate all the options and all the capabilities and all the responsibilities that come with that. So our question is, can we maybe break that down a little bit so that the stream of functionality and responsibility that goes with it can be scaled a little bit for individual libraries based on their needs? Is that a fair?
Yeah.
Putting it?
Not everyone needs to know how to do copy records for their students, because a lot of people don't. And not everyone wants to be in there fussing around with their cert privileges. They don't really want to adjust their cert privileges and parameters. They're good just using OB1 and NR1 for everything. So probably not a lot of people in this room, but there are a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
And whether that would equate back to cost, I don't know. It might be actually a discount for a large library that would be willing to take care of its own stuff versus a library that wants us doing stuff for them. I'm not sure, but it's just things that the staff has been finding as they've been doing training. And do we need to teach everybody everything? I was shocked when I got here in 1983 that we had 54 people authorized to do original cataloging. That shocked me. And we had 26 libraries, because I came from a federated region where original cataloging was very limited by who could do it. We've continued. We truly have hundreds of people who are authorized to catalog. And do we really want, after all of this time and money that we've spent cleaning up OCLC records, do we want hundreds of people doing original cataloging?
There are a lot of people out there who don't want to be doing cataloging.
Right.
So it would be giving them options, So.
Options that aren't necessarily part of the value-added services,
Right.
so aren't necessarily being charged to them, in effect penalizing them if they don't have the inclination or the time to delve into some of those details. Perhaps we can find ways to help them out. And while there might be some greater expense, there might be some savings in expense when you think about the time spent providing training and support. So there's a lot to look at.
But I just want to sort of put the caveat out there that there is the word explore. So just because things have been thrown out now does not necessarily mean that they will make it to the end. It's sort of like American Idol,
And if you think I'm breaking out into song, not happening.
Right, exactly. But, the idea is that those are some of the items that could be on the list. There may be other things as we explore that we find that should be on the list or maybe shouldn't be on the list. But the idea was and I think it sort of ties in too with looking at sort of the automation fee structure. I don't think that is a bad sort of support piece of that as well. So it's a lot of exploration this time in this particular plan. Yeah.
And maybe we'll still decide that the approach we're using right now is appropriate.
Next question.
Any other questions?
I don't have any. Does anyone else?